If Iran blocks the Strait of Hormuz, what impact will it have on the entire world, and which country will be affected the most? First, let's understand what the Strait of Hormuz actually is. It is a small area of just 33 kilometers located between Iran, Oman, and the UAE. It is a narrow sea passage through which almost 20% of the world's oil supply flows, nearly 17 million barrels every day. This oil comes from 8 countries located in the Persian Gulf, including Iran, Iraq, Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and the UAE for the United Arab Emirates. Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, and Qatar, 90% of their oil exports pass through this narrow route to reach the rest of the world. If Iran blocks the Strait of Hormuz, following countries will suffer the most damage. First is India, because it imports 85% of its oil, and 60% of that comes from Middle Eastern countries like Iraq, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, and the UAE. Fuel prices in India would skyrocket, and as a result, everything related to oil and all industries would face severe disruption. Industries could shut down, there would be job losses, and the economy would be severely affected. The second most affected country would be China. China is the world's largest oil importer, bringing in 10 million barrels of oil every day. 40% of China's oil imports pass through this Strait of Hormuz. Although China has built oil pipelines with Russia and Central Asia, they don't even fulfill 20% of its energy needs. So, if the Strait of Hormuz is blocked, China's economy could suffer a massive blow, and if China's economy is shaken, its effects will be felt all over the world. The third most affected country would be Japan, as it imports 90% of its oil, and 75% of that passes through the Strait of Hormuz. The fourth most affected country would be Saudi Arabia. 80 to 90% of Saudi Arabia's oil goes to the rest of the world through Strait of Hormuz, while only 10% goes to Europe via its Red Sea coastline. So if this choke point is blocked, Saudi Arabia's economy will be heavily impacted. Imagine that a country suddenly loses 80 to 90% of its revenue. What would happen to it? Something similar could happen to Saudi Arabia. There's also a high chance that Saudi Arabia might send in its military to reopen the route, and that could make the situation even worse. Fifth is Pakistan, which gets about 90% of its oil through the Strait of Hormuz. This oil meets around 27% of the country's energy needs. So if the route is blocked, prices in Pakistan could rise sharply. But there's an interesting twist. Since Pakistan shares a border with Iran, and several government reports suggest that 35% of Pakistan's diesel comes unofficially from Iran. So if the strait is blocked, Pakistan might turn to Iran for oil, either quietly or through an official deal. Next in line is the UAE, because as nearly as 72% of its oil exports rely on this Strait of Hormuz. The country does have a backup option, the Fckd pipeline, which allows it to bypass the strait and export up to 60% of its oil. But for a major economy like the UAE, losing the remaining 40% would still be a serious blow. Next comes the European countries like France, Germany, and Italy, which on average get 10% of their oil through the Strait of Hormuz. A blockade here would hit them hard as well. Globally, experts warn that oil prices could soar past $150 a barrel, causing widespread inflation and possibly triggering a major global recession. So this small 33-kilometer area holds enough power to shake the entire world.